But healing oftentimes is about letting go. So like in that instance, why are they not moving on from their psychotic partner? Because there's hope there. Like they want there's a hope there that the partner will change. But they have to eventually let go of that hope. So there's a letting go. Letting go is not an easy thing to do. It's the most difficult thing to do. And I also, that is the same exact reason I'm finding all these parallels between stuff and kind of piecing things together, especially in the last couple months, which is why I wanted to come on and talk to you. But that's the same exact thing I think that holds people back from healing themselves. Because, like when you're in a relationship, you have to let go of that person and just let them go and let go of the hope. When you're trying to heal yourself, you also have to let go of a person. Um, and that person is who was created to protect you during a time of trauma. I mean, it's, you can call it yourself, but it's like that ego shield that was created full of defense mechanisms to protect you during a time where you were traumatized for whatever reason. And most of the time that happens when we're kids and we develop these characteristics, these character traits that we carry on into adolescence and adulthood. And that's where you see a lot of people being self-deprecating, right? If I make fun of myself in front of a crowd before other people do, then they can't make fun of me first. So then I don't have to feel that pain that I felt when I was a child when people were mocking me. That's a textbook thing, right? And but when you really start to try to heal yourself, you have to give that person, you have to let that person go. And that is shockingly difficult to do when that is who you have thought you were since childhood. Because in childhood, we don't understand a a sense of higher self, right? A sense of who we actually are, our souls, our spiritual bodies. We don't understand any of that. You know, we're trying to learn our shapes and colors. So we get attached to this person that was subconsciously created to protect us in a world that seemed psychotic and crazy, and then we carry that on into adulthood, and it's really hard to let that person go because it's all you've ever known. So there again is a theme of letting go. In our own lives, we have to let go, and that could be anything. It could be patterns of behavior. It could be eating habits. It could be fears and anxieties that you've carried with you since childhood. Um, it could be ways of thinking, you know, as I said, self-deprecating humor. That's a huge one. That's a lot of people really have to let go of. And there's nothing wrong with like joking about yourself, but some people take it to the extreme level. And it's like, you can tell this is unhealthy, you know? Um, but I've experienced that a lot in my own life of just realizing that I have to let go. You know, like if you, and I find this interesting because this is what Brandon was talking about at the beginning of the show, how he used to be put into these situations where he would be telling himself like, oh, I'm not funny, I can't get up there and do stand up, I can't do this, I can't do that. That's like a prime example of what I'm talking about. I think that that's probably not to play like psychiatrist, but you know, like probably something in Brandon's past had him telling him that he wasn't good enough to do something XYZ. And then you carry that on for 20, 30 years. And then even as an adult, it causes this weird schism, this weird, where you're like, I'm a grown ass man. Like I can get up there and tell a joke. But then this thing that you've been carrying with you probably since childhood is whispering, saying, no, you can't do that. And that's that, I think a lot of people hate that, you know, hate that person, hate that little whisper telling them that you can't do something. But if you reframe that, that little whisper is trying to protect you. So, like, once you gain that wisdom of being like, this isn't trying to harm me, this was put in place because I was being harmed at some point in the past. And I haven't let it know that I'm okay yet. You know, like I haven't given it the the green light to just settle or go away or something. So it's still actively trying to protect me. It's actually kind of a beautiful thing. Like a lot of people say, oh, kill your ego, get rid of your ego completely. And it's like your ego is there also to protect you. And you can kind of, in a way, like program your ego based on, how much work you do. Because each time you let something go, you're letting go of like a lower level of being. That was a lot. I'm going to pause right there and let you guys
No,
talk
that
about
was
whatever you want.
great. I felt like I was listening to a podcast. That was amazing. I could say, yeah, I think that's pretty much 100% right. The only thing I would want to add to that, and we don't have to like derail the whole podcast, but as kids, I think maybe we do have a better understanding of what this is, but we're just so inundated with, no, you're wrong. You got to do this. It's how you train a kid, right? It's how you're so, but yeah, everything else you said, I think is fine. That's exactly, I think, what happens. And I think that's kind of what happened to me.
Can
And
I give a 5 second
yeah, please do.
caveat there?
10
I
seconds.
think that as children, we have a better understanding of what it should be,
Yeah.
like what it should be naturally, and then we're thrust into the crazy world, and that's where that break happens. So
Yeah, 100%. Because I remember even at like 7 years old, and I've talked about this before, where I would question, I'm just thinking of what I see, like as a first person video game shooter or whatever, like what I see. And I'm like, is this me? What's me? Like, what's behind that? Is this all about me or other people having this exact same thing, And then I remember having those thoughts, and then also remember having the thoughts of, shut up, you got to go do math, or you got to learn this, or so. And I think what happened to me over time was I felt like I wasn't good enough. There's people probably that I was friends with. I had a good friend that was really good at sports. He was like good at every single sport. So I was kind of like in his shadow with things. So I'd always defer to other people when it came to that. I was just always the tallest person most times. That was my claim to fame. And I think also I was asking these questions because I was a little smarter than some people, but then they would make me feel stupid. And I think a lot of people that are either trying to train or indoctrinate you or be your teacher or whatever it is, they kind of make you feel stupid if you're smarter than them. That's their defense mechanism. They might not even be doing it consciously, but a way to overcome a smarter person than you is to make them believe that they're not that smart. So I would constantly second guess everything, and I'd pretty much bury my intuition all the way down, and I wouldn't listen to it. And I knew I had a great intuition. The only times I would listen to it was sometimes if I had a feeling to drive a certain way, like a different way, or go a different way, and then I'd either run into somebody that I hadn't seen in a while, or if I ignored that feeling, maybe something bad or negative would happen. But I never realized that that intuition is just something I can use, my in my whole life. I would just other way, like whenever I was like, I got to get a job, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore, and I would just step over my intuition and say, nope, I got to do this. I got to make money. This is how I know how to do it. I'm good at selling cars or whatever it was. And it took me a while. I think it really was doing stand-up comedy that started all this self-healing, because I would just go up there every week and or a few times a week and just talk about everything. And then after a while it just kind of all started coming out, I think. So yeah, Sharon.
Well, I wanted to touch on the topic you talked about, the horrible treatment of a partner. And I
Mm,
don't mean to sound victimy or anything like that. But in my previous relationship of 8 years with the guy I was with, it was like I was that person, the why don't they leave person, like, why don't you leave? And I got that question from people who were near to me and close to me. Um, or not necessarily the question, but maybe just the like concern. And it wasn't, it was just, it was a very difficult and distant relationship. It's like there were times where we felt close, and then there were times where we felt totally distant from this person. And yeah, now I completely recognize that that was there was a lot of a childhood wounding that he did not heal from and that he did not want to heal from, even though I asked him to. um he would say, no, that's too hard. It's too painful. I can't do it. I won't do it. And he didn't. He never did. um and the concept that you talked about of hope being the reason, I can completely say yes, it's absolutely hope, because there were the good times. There was that initial coming together of like feeling like it was a synchronicity, all these things that we had in common, and all these it was just a lot. And I felt like, yeah, this was supposed to happen. And yes, it was supposed to happen for my growth. But yes, it was painful. And though I had lost my husband years prior to that, who was a wonderful, amazing husband, I felt like I had the complete opposite in that 8-year relationship. I felt like I went from just a, like, I know it sounds crazy, but we never fought. We didn't, like, everything was just totally great, wonderful, like a fairy tale. It sounds insane, but it was. And I went from that to like someone that I felt like I thought I was going to be able to connect to, but then we would get disconnected completely all the time. And because I had that initial, like, oh, this wonderful feeling, and he was great and this and that, but then he would disappear, or he would go quiet on the weekends or whatever, and then I wouldn't see him. Then I was like, wait, what's going on here? We had something. And then I'd try to talk to him about it. Can we work on this? And there was always that hope. And it wasn't until 8 years later, it had to be at that time. And it was 2020. It was at the very end of 2020 in October. And it was literally 8 years almost to the day, 8 years, a couple days, I think. And I was like, I just can't do this anymore. Like I think I'm done.